Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're just going to give it one more minute while some others get logged in, and then we'll get started. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm Jessica Wirt, Customer Success Manager here at Simplesoft Solutions. And as you can see, we have John Eltsroth with us as well, Project Manager from Simplesoft Solutions. As you can see here on the lead slide, we are recording the event today. And if you have any questions, feel free to send them in the chat box. We will try to hit them throughout the event. Otherwise, we'll get to them in the Q&A portion. Right, just going to go through a few slides here. All right, so today's agenda, as I mentioned, I already did introductions, and we're going to take a look at some of our upcoming events, and then I'm going to go through a few slides on best practices for CRM activities, and then we will turn it over to John for a live demonstration, and then Q&A open discussion at the end. Just something quick, are you following us on our social and especially on our YouTube channel? If you're not, I suggest you go find us. You can find us on any of them by searching Simplesoft Solutions. Our YouTube channel always has new videos and updates coming out as Infor releases new updates. We always like to show you what's going on, so be sure to check those out. And also be sure to check out our blog at simplesoft.net. You can find all our latest blog articles, again, on the latest updates, fixes, and just some best practices as well. All right, so we'll take a look at our upcoming events. Next week is the next in this series that we're doing for the sales team, and it's going to focus on the CRM mobile application. So be sure to get signed up for that one. And then on December 9th, we're doing a co-webinar with our rep from Infor, and she's going to review the product roadmap and some exciting new features coming in the 8.5 release that's due early next year. And then we'll also talk about preparing your database for the new year and some best practices for cleanup and getting ready to use that. And then I have on here that we'd like your feedback. Starting the new year and planning webinars, we're going to take off the month of January and just gather your feedback and thoughts and ideas on what you'd like to see us cover in these webinars. So please feel free to email me those to the email address here below. All right, we're going to pause for a second. We're going to do a quick poll, everybody. You'll see it pop up here on your screen in just a second. Let me get it up for you. All right. Here we go. Here's the first question for you guys to answer. All right, everyone's submitting some responses. Interesting, interesting. All right, we're going to close it and check it out. All right, can everyone see that response there? So we asked if you're currently using them to do sales follow-up, and it looks like 57% said yes, so that's good to know. All right, we're going to do one more here before we move on. So tell us if you aren't using activities, if you were some of the ones that said no, how are you managing your sales activities now? All right, we'll go ahead and close that one. I'll share those results with you. All All right, looks like the bulk of you that aren't using CRM activities are doing it in Outlook, which is very common, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. All right, so let's move on to taking a look at some of the best practices here. All right, so I have, we just talked about and saw that most of you that aren't using activities are using your Outlook, which is common since you live in your Outlook all day, I'm sure, as most of us do. And so this is a look at a snapshot of an Outlook calendar that is using, as you can see here, I have some synced meetings, and also the XBAR panel is up on the right side. Now, we're not going to review XBAR. This isn't an XBAR training, but I will hit on just the points of, as you can see here in the blue bar, you'll see it says activities, notes, history. So if you're not using XBAR and you're living in your Outlook already with your activities, I highly recommend getting it launched in your Outlook, because you can schedule your upcoming phone calls, meetings, tasks right here from Outlook without having to go to your web client CRM. And you can see past activities, you can see past history and discussions that you've had with that person. So the XBAR is a great tool for managing your activities right from your Outlook. And you can sync your calendar so that anything you send out, and I'll show you in this next slide here, you'll see here that on the bottom of your Outlook invite that you're already using, if you have it in sync, you can go ahead and add your account and contact from the CRM at the bottom. You'll see in the red circle here, so that when you send it just like normal, it goes ahead and syncs to your CRM so that the data is already captured. And you'll see here in this red box in the bottom corner, I'm noting that it'll give you that confirmation that it's successfully synced. And then another quick new feature that we just wanted to touch on, again, we'll go into more detail on this next week when we do the CRM mobile, but they have given you the ability in the latest update to do a new unscheduled activity. So maybe you're on the road and you pick up a phone call and you have a good call and you hang up. Instead of having to create the activity and then go back and complete it, you can do it in one step now with the new unscheduled. So you'd click new unscheduled, it would let you select phone call, and then what it does is it automatically makes the result of complete, so that when you put in all your notes and your regarding and everything that you discussed and you hit the save button, it goes ahead and records that as a completed activity in your CRM. So it keeps it nice and easy for you. So we just wanted to touch on that. All right, and then something else we get asked a lot is about using the auto follow-up feature in your web client. So I just wanted to show a couple of quick screen grabs on how to set that up. So when you go into your web client, up in the black bar at the top, you'll see the tools menu, and drop down and you'll select options. And when you get to your options, there's an activities tab here. And this is where you can select your default follow-up. So you can make that drop down. It can be to default to a phone call to follow up, an email, or a to-do. And you can set those settings here. All right, and then let's take a look at some best practices. So we've talked a lot about with leadership, you know, how to drive activity management and how to help foster that user adoption of it. And so let's just take a look at a couple of them. And so leadership, this one's for you on the call, is define and communicate your clear expectations. So what do you want your team doing in there? Is it recording phone calls? Is it setting a certain amount of follow-ups per week? Once you come up with those expectations, then make sure you're clearly defining them to the team so they know what they're supposed to do in there. And then start small and then build on. So instead of creating 15 different things that you want them to do and dropping that all on the sales team at one time, pick one small thing, like maybe you want them always setting a phone call follow-up to every email they send to a new prospect. Maybe that could be the goal for a couple of weeks, and get them comfortable in using the process and then build on from there. Third, we say lead by example. Again, using it yourself, as simple as that, right? Just lead by example and using activities in there. And then also using the information. So in your sales meetings, use the information in the CRM by showing dashboards, showing the groups, maybe even looking at the calendar as a team, and having you as a sales manager asking your team, hey, I see you have a lot of meetings. Do you need my help on any of these? Or how can we help? And so using the information to show the sales team that it is valuable information to the company as a whole for lots of reasons. And then number 5, we have review with your team periodically. So check in with them and see if the expectations that you set, how's it going? Get their feedback. Do things need adjusted? Is it too much? Give them your feedback on what they're putting in there, and keep it a collaborative process so that they're more likely to engage in it with you. Right, let me just check on the chat. Okay, nothing yet. All right. Really quick, before I turn it over to John, I just want to let everyone on the call know, a few of you already use Inbox Guru, but it is Infor CRM's native marketing platform that can be integrated to use for landing pages, email, drip and nurture campaigns. And so they're having a great promo until the end of the year, 15% off the yearly subscription if you sign up by the end of the year. So if you'd like a complete demo or more information, reach out to me after this webinar and I'll be happy to go through that with you. All right, let's finish up with 2 more quick polls and then we'll turn it over to John. All right, so let's look at this one. What do you think the biggest value is in using CRM activities? I know what my vote would be if I could vote. All right, let a few more come in here. Oh, most of you are agreeing with me. All right, I'm going to show you the poll here. All right, so 57%, it allows me to know, remember more. I know that is the biggest value I find in it when you talk to a lot of people and a lot of different customers throughout the week. Definitely reviewing my history notes and upcoming activities help me focus on the week. So I agree. All right, let's do the last one here. So once you miss an activity, how often are you going back and rescheduling it? All right. Okay, let's take a look at what you guys said there. All right, most said weekly, which is good. You should keep up on that because we don't want them to go too past due, because then you tend to miss out on opportunities. All right, so I'm going to hide that. And with that, John, I am going to turn it over to you to take over. And,
all right, thank you.
Show us some live demo. All right, let's see here. All right, we can see your screen.
Okay, so do you see Infor CRM?
No, just your desktop.
Just my, okay, so you're seeing the webinar.
Just seeing like your blue river. Yeah.
All right. So how to, not seeing how to share a particular screen. If you're just seeing my desktop background, I'm not sure why. Guess we should have checked that. Okay, wait a minute. I think I got it.
There we go.
Right click on it. Okay.
All right, now we're seeing it. Yep.
All right. So in activity management, many people have different ways to prioritize and manage their schedule, and they use different tools. There are different schools of thought in regards to practices for prioritizing and making sure that you know what's right to be handled in your in your calendar on any particular day, whether or not you want to block out time or not. So those are all options. One of the challenges we see is that some people, they get used to using Outlook and therefore minimize the advantages of activity management in Infor CRM. So I'm going to highlight the advantages of using Infor CRM and how you can also use the two together and when it makes sense to do that. So first of all, let me just review some of the features of Infor CRM, and I'll highlight some of the new features of Infor CRM as I go. So right now we're looking at the calendar application or the calendar form, and within that you can, depending upon your calendar rights that you've been granted by the CRM administrator, you can identify which users you want to look at any particular point in time, and they're color coded. So if I uncheck Samantha, she drops off of the display. If I click on Samantha, then her calendar is included along with my calendar that I'm looking at. And then within the calendar view, if you double click on an activity, then that brings up the full activity. And the advantages of using the Infor CRM activity management is that it is tying the activity to something that you're responsible for. It may be, you may be responsible for an account, an opportunity, a customer support ticket, etc. And this is one of the areas that just recently changed in Infor CRM. You can, in the past, you could associate an activity to an account, a contact, opportunity, and a ticket, but now you have the advantage or the ability to tie an activity to many other entities within Infor CRM. So for example, I could have a task, an activity that's tied to a campaign, a defect, a lead, a quote, return, sales order, etc. So that's one of the new features. And so you would just highlight that you want to tie an association to a particular activity, and that links the two. In addition to that, when you complete the activity, then that history automatically goes with that tie. So if you've associated the activity to a sales order, now you have that history on the sales order. Same thing with an opportunity or a ticket, etc. And so so as you're completing the activity, you're not only completing the activity, but you're creating the history related to that activity, and then you may also be scheduling a new activity. Now, one of the areas that we find that people don't take advantage of is the priority and category. And let me just explain how I recommend that you use these various fields. In my opinion, the regarding box should indicate what the objective of the activity is. So if it's a phone call, the regarding should identify what you're trying to achieve. So it may be to get approval on a quote. It may be to understand the requirements of a particular opportunity you're proposing. Then the category should be a higher level classification of the activity. And often this could be used for reporting, for management reporting, to help them understand overall how the organization is performing in regards to certain types of activities. So it's important for someone within your CRM deployment team to decide what are your primary categories that you're going to report with. And then priority, I often do see this, where these are the default values that are delivered within Infor CRM, and it actually shows two different methodologies of task management: high, medium, low, which is very common, A1, A2, A3, B1, etc. That's the Franklin Planner philosophy on task management. But you should be deciding what your organization wants to use to manage priorities of activities. Because at any point in time, you want anyone that's collaborating with you on an opportunity or an account, they should be able to immediately just open up the account and know what's going on. They should know that there's a high priority activity that's pending and maybe past due, and they should also see all the history related to that particular activity. Now, the notes should then further clarify what you're planning to do during the execution of this activity. So, for example, if it's a sales call, you should be identifying what are you calling about? What are you trying to do during that particular sales call? Excuse me. And if it's a meeting, you may want to include the prior notes or an outline of the prior notes from the previous meeting so that you have a guideline and an index, a table of contents in essence to follow for this particular meeting. So your agenda for the meeting should really be in your notes so that it's very easy to see. If you wanted to just take a screenshot of the activity before you go into a physical meeting, that's fine. If you're staying at home and you're working on the phone and just doing a virtual meeting, then you could have it up and open, reviewing it that way. The attendees tab is relatively new in regards to the Infor CRM product line, not extremely new, but you can now have multiple attendees associated with an activity. You still have the primary leader of the activity, the person that's responsible for this activity, and this activity is tied to a particular account and contact, etc. But then the attendees may list people from other companies as well as the company that you're performing this activity with. The recurring capability of the activity management has also recently changed. So before it was identified in the database as one item with a recurring schedule, but we opened up the ability for you to create groups of activities, just like you create groups of contacts or opportunities or support tickets, where you could right click on a group and add a group or click the plus sign to add a group. And in order to achieve that capability, we've exploded the recurring activities into individual activities. So when you schedule a recurring activity, it actually creates multiple activity records in the database so that you can create these groups. And if you wanted to have a group that identified past due, high priority, past due, high priority sales activities, etc., you could create those groups. Excuse me. So this is a good example of a follow-up call activity where we've identified we're going to follow up on a quote and it's a high priority. We didn't categorize it, so this should probably, we'll pick leads. I didn't have a lot in that particular drop-down list, but it's a high priority, and the objective or our plan is to get the timeline from Jeremy on signing or agreeing to the quote. Now, when you're completing an activity, it's important to also recognize whether or not you're going to perform a follow-up. In my opinion, if you have an open opportunity, there should never be an open opportunity without an activity pending. If there is, then there's an issue. Because you may drop the ball. You may miss something that you need to get taken care of to move that opportunity forward. So it's always important that when you're completing an activity, you should be already planning what is the follow-up. And in most activities, there will be a follow-up. It may be 3 to 6 months down the road if it's just something that they're not interested in right now and you need to follow up with them later. Or maybe you're in customer support, you've just satisfied a customer and they said, well, check with us in 3 months just to verify that everything's still working okay. So you would identify what your follow-up activity is. I do recommend that you carry over notes from the current activity and not necessarily the attachments. There's really no reason to carry forward attachments. But then you can identify that you're completing it now or as scheduled. If, for example, if you're on the road and you're not using the mobile application right now, then you can wait until you get off the road and then complete it as scheduled. For example, in the case of a meeting. But here I'm now scheduling a follow-up meeting. And so at this point in time, I would change my notes some. So maybe that original call was to follow up on a quote, but then now I may be and maybe he asked for some type of an adjustment. So I carried over the notes to minimize my typing, but I'm still adjusting this particular activity for what I want it to be. And then, of course, identify when you want it to occur. Now, Jessica mentioned that there are some default options that are used to populate things like duration and alarms and whether you want it to be timeless. Those are in your tools option settings. So you do want to make sure that you've reviewed your tools options to make sure that you minimize the amount of time it takes to perform a particular task. So now we have a meeting scheduled, and currently it's scheduled past due. Now, or if I look at all open, these are all my open activities. As we mentioned in one of the polls, it's important to keep track of what's past due and move it forward, make sure that it's current. You should be getting alarms or alerts based on your activity alert properties that you've defined. And you can dismiss them or dismiss all of them, snooze them for a period. You could also move them forward, reschedule them. But at some point in time, the majority of you said you reschedule activities once a week. That's fine. I do recommend that it be not any longer than that. I like to do it every day, although I have to admit I don't do it every day. I try to, either in the morning or at the end of the day. If I'm in a hurry to get out, then I may not do it at the end of the day. I prefer doing it at the end of the day because it just makes me feel better in the morning when I already know what my schedule is going to be. But if I don't do it then, I try to do it early in the morning. And so you should use your past due group to manage your activities. That's a quick way to just find out what needs to be moved forward and rescheduled, or possibly completed. Maybe you really did perform the task, but you haven't completed it yet. So those options that we're talking about are here, and it's important to identify what your preferences are on these categories. So for example, a default alarm for a phone call may be 15 minutes, or maybe you choose to treat phone calls as timeless. You're not blocking out time. I'd see that that's that's handled different ways. A lot of my phone calls may not be at a specific point in time, and I may decide in the morning how I want to schedule it, or maybe I just work them off as I go through the day, depending on my schedule. Some may be agreed upon times, so then in that case, they're not going to be timeless. But I would say for me, most of my phone calls, my default is set at timeless, but then I may schedule some. My meetings will almost always be time oriented. So my default timeless is not checked in this case. And you can also identify whether or not you want to-dos to automatically roll over. And the to-dos work just like phone calls or meetings. As you complete the activity, it goes into the history of that associated entity, like the account and contact or opportunity. Personal activities, it's a judgment whether or not you want to use that capability in Infor CRM. Some people do in order to block out time. Other people prefer to handle their personal activities in Outlook. So that's a judgment call on your case. Now let's look at the mobile client. In the mobile client, the calendar, and let me just minimize this. So you set a default on how it opens. Right now we're looking at a calendar, and if I'm on yesterday, I would see that I have 2 activities. If you click on that, it'll expand that activity, show the related items, and so there we'd see the associations, the attendees, any attachments associated with that activity. And the mobile client is designed to be very light duty and quick, and designed for either for a mobile device, a tablet or a phone. And for that reason, it's scaled down and doesn't have all the functionality of the main client, but it has your primary capability that you'd want. And so when you click on the hamburger menu, you can go to the go-to area and jump from your calendar to your list of activities, the notes and history, accounts, etc. In the other category, that's where you have a configure menu that identifies what items you're displaying within the mobile client. So for example, if you're not involved in quotes, you may have that turned off. And same thing with tickets, for example. Up in the quick action section, there's an add contact and account, or add account contact. So let's go to my schedule, and didn't have anything on today, so we'll go back to the calendar. Now this pencil allows you to edit the activity. So if you're on the road and you just need to edit an activity, you can. And then if you want to complete it, you just click the complete button, identify what you achieved. So the notes, remember your notes for like an outline of what you're trying to do, but this should identify what you actually did accomplish. And then down at the bottom is your category and your associations. So if I complete that activity, then that's no longer showing as a pending item on my calendar. Now, another view of activities is within the X-Bar. X-Bar is a plugin, an extension of Outlook that allows you to do many of your Infor CRM operations within Outlook. And it works in relationship to the email that you're currently displaying. So if I'm on this email down here with Terry Unger, then I see that she is a contact within Infor CRM. I know that she's in Infor CRM because of the square box with the up arrow. And if I click on that, it would open up her contact record in Infor CRM. I can also see that there are current activities scheduled, and I have past due activities with Terry. I have open opportunities as well as open tickets. If I wanted to see the activities, then they're listed here. And then if I were completing an activity, I would click on that complete button and click save, and after updating information about it. Then if I needed to schedule new activities, I could go to the waffle menu and then create a new meeting, new to-do, new phone call, new note, etc. Also back on the mobile client, I forgot to point out that this new here is your activity management. So if you're scheduling new activities within Infor CRM mobile client, you would click that plus sign to schedule a new activity, similar to what you're doing within the X bar.
And John, while you're there, we have a question about walking through how to, when you're doing a meeting on the calendar, how you add the people to the bottom. So if you just maybe want to show that live from the screenshot I showed.
Okay. So you're talking about if I'm in looking at the calendar.
No,
here?
from Outlook. From Outlook.
Oh,
Yeah.
from Outlook. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying if I'm on Outlook calendar.
Yes. Yep. And you're making a new meeting.
Okay. And I'm making a new meeting. Okay. So let's say I'm scheduling a new appointment for tomorrow. And when this comes up at the bottom of the screen is the link to the Infor CRM. And so this is where I would identify the account that it's associated with. And so this is bringing up your Infor CRM address book. So when you configure XBAR, part of what you're configuring is the Infor CRM database being an address book within Outlook. And then that would allow you to search for a particular contact. And in this case, I'm looking at accounts. Well, let's stick with that because that was an account search I was doing. So I'll pick Abbott Worldwide. If you wanted to click for a contact, you could do that. Same thing with an opportunity and a ticket. So as soon as I, let's say that this is a, so if you knew what some of the priorities were, you would go ahead and put that in your notes. And then as you're holding the meeting, then you could add to that. Now you saw that little flash come up that said that it synced that particular meeting over to Infor CRM. And so that's how, when you're in Outlook and you're scheduling new activities, then you can have them automatically linked to Infor CRM. Now, if you were just scheduling an appointment and you're not using this bottom box, and I click save. Now this one's not going to be in Infor CRM unless I set up sync. And if I set up a particular method of syncing with Infor CRM, it could go over to Infor CRM, but it still doesn't know who it's associated with. So the advantage of the method that I used here is that once it syncs into Infor CRM, it's already tied to that particular contact and account. Now within Infor CRM, if let's say I forgot to pick the opportunity here, I could still look up Abbott Limited or John Abbott and find that meeting, or go to my calendar and then add the opportunity to that, or any other related entity that I wanted to tie to that particular activity.
John, that is a question that came up, is where do we see that appointment at the contact level? So maybe you're on John Abbott's contact card.
So you're saying within Outlook?
No, within CRM.
Okay, within CRM. So let's say I look up John Abbott. Oh, we have several John Abbotts. Nice. Guess we have some duplicate checking to do. So I'm going to scroll through each of these, or I could go to my calendar and actually just the activity. Oh, there it is. So this activities tab is identifying my pending activities. I scheduled one for tomorrow. That's okay. There's a John. Oh, I see. This group is actually displaying John multiple times. Okay. So this is where you would see the activity list. Within a contact record.
And you can complete them, right? From right there, I see.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So this is the meeting that we just scheduled. And if I click complete, then again, it pulls up the completion list. I'd want to update my notes. I'd want to identify what is the result. Now, I do think this is important to use. Often if it's a phone call, now we're on a meeting, but on a phone call, it's often that you may be leaving a voicemail. So make sure that you don't just say that the phone call was complete. If you left a voicemail, phone call is really not complete. You still want to complete the phone call. So identify what your result is, update your notes, schedule your follow-up activity, and then click now or as scheduled. So let's look at a phone call. If we look at this particular phone call and we complete it, then in this case, you have a lot more options in this particular pick list, but that's up to you what these values are. But if you didn't actually have the conversation, then you should identify that you left a voicemail or didn't respond, didn't pick up, whatever. So that, and reschedule that phone call for tomorrow or some further date. Now, another down in here, you see that we also have some IntelliCTI options within the list. If you are using the telephony integration with Infor CRM, which is tying your phone system to Infor CRM, there's a lot of capabilities within IntelliCTI for activity management as well. So when you are actually performing the call, then a notepad pops up and you can be typing your notes as you complete the call. You can still search through Infor CRM. It's not tying up Infor CRM like this dialog box is, the IntelliCTI dialog box would be over to the side, and you can be typing your notes for the call while you're looking up opportunities or tickets or products. And then when you're done with the call, there's a call wrap-up dialog that pops up to allow you to complete the call like we are here. So it would bring you back to a dialog box similar to this to complete the call and schedule your follow-up activity.
Have another question here. So we have two questions related to the Outlook calendar. So the one is, how do we make sure our Outlook calendar is set to sync and share properly? And then the other one is, what version and bit level does sync work? They have 64-bit, 365, and do not see the lower level where you can assign the account and contact to an appointment.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's start with the scheduling. So if we look at go to the Home tab and then look at My Options, this is where you are configuring XBAR. And so the Connection tab is just identifying how does XBAR connect to Infor CRM. And it does connect through the Web Services portal, which is referred to as SData. So this would be your SData URL. And then you identify what client gets launched when you click that square box with the up arrow. And so that identifies how to launch Infor CRM. This is your Windows authentication or your user authentication. The sync navigation button allows you to then identify what are you synchronizing in regards to Outlook to CRM and back. Now, there's preferences here. Personally, I do not synchronize contacts to Outlook because I don't need them in Outlook. I've got the Infor CRM address book. And so I take advantage of that. I use the Infor mobile client when I'm traveling or on the road. And so I choose not to synchronize contacts to Outlook, but I do have clients that do like them sync to Outlook so that they can get them into their phone in an efficient manner. And when you're doing that, you would just click this checkbox, identify what ad hoc group you're going to utilize for that sync. Now what that does is allow you to reduce the number of contacts that are syncing. Rather than syncing the whole database, it's only going to sync the ones that you want. So you pick your group, then you pick your Outlook folder, the contacts folder within Outlook that you want it to sync to, and identify whether it should be one-way or two-way sync. And then you also have in the newest release of the mobile client, you have the ability to synchronize leads similar to contacts. Now, I often do set up appointment synchronization, primarily for the reason that often I'm working with a group that uses Exchange that schedules meetings for non-Infor CRM users. And I want to take advantage of that same meeting. So I synchronize it with Infor CRM so that the two stay in sync. Now, another method is there's a quick way that you can copy the meeting into Infor CRM and then just manage it within Infor CRM from there. But I would say normally I would use two-way syncing on calendars and only for appointments. And I usually use a filter to filter out phone calls because I don't have a reason to put phone calls in Outlook. Same with task. I usually don't sync task to Outlook. I manage all my tasks, all my business tasks within Infor CRM. personal task, I may block out time in Infor CRM for personal activities, but I really manage my personal task within Outlook because I don't need it in my business database. So that's where you set up the synchronization. Now, if it's not synchronizing properly, there are some maintenance things that we may have to help you through. If it was XBAR, because it is an extension to Outlook, is also susceptible to changes in Office 365. Microsoft is changing it very often, and sometimes that breaks the connection. And we may have to reconfigure it, possibly even reinstall it to get it to work with the newest version of Office 365. In that process, sometimes we use an application called Outlook Spy that allows us to completely purge old connectivity information or configuration information for XBAR so that it begins to sync properly again. So if you're having any issues with that, just let us know and we'll help you through that process.
So John, would that be the one question on the person that has 365 and they're not seeing the lower part to assign when they open a new calendar invite? They're not seeing that place to put an account contact.
Yeah, I don't think that's what it is. Let's carry on. Do they have the address book set up? Because that probably will not display unless you have the address book.
Okay.
If the address book is not configured, and that's what's done on this tab, so you're identifying whether or not the address book should be configured, and if so, do you want accounts as distribution list, opportunities as distribution list, etc. So it's possible that the address book may not be working.
Okay, so be sure to check that out. And if you're still having issues, feel free to send me an email and I can get you more help on that.
Right.
And let's see, John, we have
as far as the bit level, I think.
Oh yeah.
I believe that the XBAR works 4-bit. It definitely works at 32-bit, but I'm almost positive that it supports 64-bit. The only thing that I believe that we're still restricted to with 32-bit is the word mail merge. Everything else should work at 64-bit.
Okay. So we are right we have about 8 minutes left. So I will say anyone else that wants to send in questions, please do so. Feel free to put them in the chat box or the questions panel. I'm going to send out, let's see, we have a raised hand here. Trying to see who that was that raised their hand. Maybe you changed your mind or send it to the chat. I'm going to send out I have some handouts that are sorry, I lost my panel there. I have some handouts that I'll send out to you that are cue cards that hit high-level overviews of scheduling and completing activities. So I will make sure that those get sent out. Let's see, we have a question that came in. Is there a way to print your activity list every day? I don't know if you mean a physical print. I know you could make a group called My Activities. John, do you have any feedback on how they could quickly see their activity list every day?
Yes, the easiest way now, as long as you're at the release level, I think it's 8403 was when we expanded the recurring activities and created the group ability. You would just add a group of your, well, let's say you're looking at your open activities. You would filter it to just you. And so in this, let me scroll down here to name, or not name, leader. So you would make sure that you're just checking yourself as the leader, and then you could print it right from there, or export it to Excel if you want to export to an Excel spreadsheet and then print it. Now, there are activity reports, but the standard activity reports are very paper consuming. They have a lot of data on the activity reports. And so if I filter this list of activity, there is a current activities report, but it is fairly voluminous. You could edit that report and simplify it into a simple list. And then that would be another way that you could just then run the report for the current activities and have it prompt you for what time frame you want. But now that so if you're not in a release level that has the group capabilities where you can create your own groups and design it the way you want, then you may want to design the report to be the way you want.
All right. Let's see. Now, any other questions?
I have one other thing I wanted to show.
Yes, go for it.
So when you're in Outlook and you're using XBAR, one of the most frequent things you're doing is reading the email, either responding to it and sending it to history, or just recording the history. And so when you record the history, in your options dialog box, you have the ability to prompt for leads and contacts to display the history details before saving, etc. And so when you're, let's say, scheduling an activity from that sent email and you're recording it, then again, if you're copying the contents of the body of the email into that activity, then it makes sense that you customize the notes and not just leave this text in your email or in your new activity that you just created. So let's say I reply to this and I click send to CRM. And that should have prompted me for a history record. It looked like it should have. Yes, it should have. Well, I would probably need to check why that didn't work here, but normally that would prompt me to save the history, which would be just like if you're completing a meeting. So if I'm completing an activity, then it would prompt me with this dialog box, and all those notes that were in the email content would be in this box. Just make sure you edit what you put in the notes, because it shouldn't just tell you what you did in the email. You want the notes to be what you want this activity to be about. So, but often I do see that people will record an email to history, create a new activity, copy over the notes with that activity, but then not edit it at all. And so then if I look at that pending activity as a manager, I really don't know what they're going to talk about or what they're going to do in that meeting, because all I see is the email history. So just make sure that you utilize that portion of the activity management.
Okay. All right. I'm going to come back on here. All right. Well, thank you, John, so much for the overview. Thanks everyone for attending. Yes, thank you. And I don't see any other questions coming in. As always, feel free to email myself or John after. I will send out a follow-up email with the recording, those handouts I spoke of that detail how to complete and schedule activities. And be sure to sign up for next week's webinar if you haven't already, and we'll take a deeper dive into CRM Mobile. And John will be our expert on that call next week too. So we'll see everybody then, and thanks for your time today. Bye, everybody.
Bye.